What's up YouTube? Georgia Silver Hunter back, and today we will be doing a $500 quarter box hunt, but today's a little different because this is going to be a box battle with another channel called Stacking and Packing. He's been around for quite some time. He's just over 6,300 subscribers, and I guess one of his subscribers had told him to challenge somebody to a box battle, and he reached out to me and I said, yeah, no problem. Next time I get some quarters, we'll go ahead and do a little box battle out of it. So we're both making videos. We'll post them on the same day. And I've got a little point system that I'll throw up on the screen that we'll be using to keep track of points. But before we get into the quarters, I did want to show I am actually doing customer wrapped quarters rather than bank wrapped because I got two boxes. One of them was about 40% of the new Kanaka Ole quarters. But I was able to get these. These came from about a 2,000 or 3,000 quarter dump from a local laundromat. So this could be really, really interesting. These are the quarters of the people. We know they went straight from their pockets to the laundromat, basically to me. So they didn't get back to the Fed to be searched or what have you and rewrapped. So I'm excited to get into these. I'm excited to have this little box battle with Stacking and Packing. And we'll be keeping track of everything we find in this one. So let's jump into it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into our first roll here. I have a feeling that I'll probably have some rolls that are heavy and some rolls that are short because that's just what happens when you do customer wrapped rolls. Even though they came from a laundromat, Lord knows how they're counting these things. But I'm going to just actually open a couple, 3 or 4 of these and see if we get lucky with some silver. And then I will go through hunting each individual roll for various mint errors, die chips, double dies, W quarters, silver. Actually, we're going to edge hunt here for silver. Foreigns, any of that kind of good stuff. As I showed you during the opening, we've got a point system to keep track of what each one of those is worth. And I'll make sure to give you guys an update, maybe midway through. And by the time we get to the end, we'll do a total tally. I do have a document in the description below this video that has all of the things that I'm looking for during this hunt. And there may be a few that I haven't updated that list, but it's fairly all-inclusive. So right now, just looking for silver by the edge. I'm going to go ahead and open 2 more here on camera. I was hoping that was a W. The real valuable stuff we're looking for, though, are our W West Point minted quarters, which are 2019 and 2020. They have a W mint mark rather than a P or a D. Silver would be 1964 and earlier. And honestly, W quarters right now are worth more than silver. So finding those W's are far cooler than finding silver these days. Just simply because the value of them is so high on resale. All right, well, that's 5 rolls. Nothing's jumping out at me. I'll go through them and I'll bring you guys in as we find stuff. All right, well, we're getting through our very first roll that we laid out, and we've come across our first die chip error. This one's got a die chip here in Wilma Mankiller's hair. You can see it pretty good here under this magnification. I'll go ahead and put it under the scope so you can see it a little bit better. And there it is right there. There's some extra metal left in that little channel where the hair kind of gets stamped down. There's a little bit of metal that gets left in there. These are fairly common, not worth a lot of money, but I find these all the time. And that's 3 points on the board. So just a couple of coins later on roll number 1, and I know I didn't set this up as being part of my Hunt and Fill series, but this 2011 Pennsylvania is just super shiny, and I actually need the Denver for my state, was it the state quarter book? It is, it's the state quarter book. 2011 Denver is one I needed. When I flipped it over, look at that, we have that Denver. So we'll pull out the books at the end of the video as well to show I've got a book filler, and that leaves us, I think, with just 1 coin left out of my state quarter album. Not going to be points on this one, but just a cool find for me. All right, well, we're on roll number 2, about halfway through, and I've already got a coin under the scope. This is the 2023 Philadelphia Bessie Coleman. And on this one, we've got a little bit of a die chip here on the biplane. And we've also got a very, very minor NQ's error where you can actually see 3 C's here and a little bit of double on the E. This is called an NQ's error. It is not a double die reverse, but this is one that I haven't really found before that is errored this way. Normally I find it where the E is out here and the C, like you almost have a ghosted E and a C. This is all piled up on top of one another. So I'm just going to call this one a die chip error, but actually because I don't have NQ's errors on the point sheet. But this is pretty cool. This one's got both. So I'd laid out the next 5 rolls, rolls 6 through 10. This is actually roll 8, and we have come across another die chip error. This one is really, really common. I did a video on this probably a week or 2 ago. I did a whole box of these and found tons of them. This one is a little bit different than the ones I outlined on my last video, but it's in the exact same place. You can see right here, we've got a little bit of a die chip down here in the channel of the NQ's K on Kanaka Ole. And normally when you've got some of the die chip here, you even get some over here in the A. Maybe there's just a tiny bit right there, but very, very minor die chip. But we'll put it on the board for another 3 points. So we're getting through roll 10. It's our last roll that we'd laid out for roll 6 through 10. And we've got another Kanaka Ole under the scope. And you'll see this time it's even a little different than the last couple, my last video and the last one I showed you. We've now got our die chip here in the bottom of the K and in the upper left-hand corner. So there's another 3 points. And oh, look at that. We've actually got a die chip up here on the mountain. I just was going to check it because I've seen these on eBay. So we've got the die chip there as well. Let me just look at this real quick, make sure I didn't miss anything else. Let's look for the Drooling George. No drooling. But there's your 2023 P. So another die chip error for the books. Still on roll number 10, just a couple of coins later, we've got our first bicentennial, and it's a beaut. It is a Philadelphia, so I don't believe there's any DDOs or DDRs on this one, but we'll put that aside for a point. I'm just kind of stacking them up over here. Here's potential book fillers, and I just noticed we've got a Kanaka Ole right underneath it. I think we're going to have a die chip on this one too. Let's put it under the scope to see it a little better. And we are. This one, massive die chip here in the A and here in the K again. So another 3 points. So we just laid out roll number 14, and I got real excited when I first dumped it out because you can see that big silvery edge there, but the reading is off. So I believe that's going to be foreign. Let's see if it's magnetic. One of the things I love to do is check for magnetic. So it's not Canadian. If it were, it would stick. Let's see what we got here. Some sort of Asian coin. I have no idea what this is. I have to look this one up. Looks like it's a 1987 100 something. 100 yen, 100. I have no idea. But we'll see if we can identify this before the end of the video. So we just got into roll 15, and we're, I don't know, maybe a quarter of the way through the roll, and we've come across another very common error on a quarter that's in okay condition. This is the 2008 Arizona Philadelphia. I don't believe you can find this on the Denver, but it's another die chip error where you get a piece of, it's actually called the extra cactus error because it looks like all these other little cactuses, but it covers up the engraver's initials. So let's put that under the scope so you can see it a little bit better. Where'd you go? There you are. Normally you can see very clearly a J-I-M right there, and as it stands now, you can kind of only make out the M and maybe a little bit of the I, because all this metal right here is not supposed to be there. So we're going to put 3 more points on the board. I did also want to say I have found a bunch more of those Kanaka Ole errors. I'm not going to count those simply because now I'm up to like 4 or 5 of them and it just didn't seem right. And I failed to mention that finding a foreign was also worth 2 points. Same roll, a couple of quarters later, we have found another die chip, and this one's a little worse for wear. You can see all of the road rash on this one, but we've got a really good example of the Drooling George. And this is the, what is this one called? The Dr. Sally Ride. Sorry, brain just didn't function there for a second. But yeah, the Dr. Sally Ride. The other one thing I'm always looking for on these is there's a die clash that you can see in the fields of both sides of her head. And there is a little DDR on her collar. And I've been looking, I found a couple of the die clashes about, I don't know, 6-8 months ago. And I did find 1 or 2 of the DDRs, but it's been months and months since I've seen one of those. But we'll put the Drooling George on the board, another 3 points. So we just finished getting through roll 27. I know it's a bit messy up there because they're customer wraps. I actually got all the way to the end. However, I did find this very early in that roll. We've got another very minor Drooling George die chip. And I found a bunch of stuff that I haven't brought you guys in for because it's a lot of duplicates. We have found a bunch of the Kanaka Ole die chip errors in here. I'm up to 12. They seem to be falling into the same 2 or 3 basic patterns of die chips. And let's see here. We did find, I think, 3 more bicentennials along the way. And I think I've got these in the wrong. There they go. They go there. So we had 3 more Philadelphia bicentennials. I believe based on the point system, each of those would be a point. These would each be 3, and we'll do a full total of what we found, and then I'm probably not going to count every single one of these duplicates. I'll probably just pull out the unique ones, and we'll count those. But here is another Drooling George, and we'll put that one on the board. It's another Sally Ride, too, if you were curious. So I think that's 2 Sally Ride Drooling Georges on this hunt. We're on roll 31, and I thought I'd bring you in for a couple of these. I know I've skipped a bunch, but I found a second one of these and now a third, so I thought I'd bring you in. It's another one of those die chips. I think it was the very first find of the box. You can see it really clearly here just under this magnification, but I've got 3 of these now. I skipped showing you the second one, but there's 3, and I have found another Kanaka Ole along the way. So we're on roll 33, if my count is right. I'm getting through that roll here. I've already got it under the scope, what I found. This is actually the 6th Claw Alaska that I really honestly stopped looking for because it is so plentiful. But since it's a box battle, I figured I would check them. And the 6th Claw is where you get a little extra die chip here between that sort of last digit and next to last digit. And it makes it look like there's a little extra claw kind of hanging out there from the little bear's claw there. And I've found rolls and rolls and rolls of these when I first started hunting quarters, and I actually found a bunch of BU ones, and I've slowly been taking them back to the bank when I need a roll to fill with an extra quarter or 2. But these things are still out there if you're looking. Not very much money in these because they are so plentiful, but we'll put it on the board for another 3 points. Just got into roll 35, and I've just got through the first couple of quarters. I've already got it under the scope. It's another one of the Arizonas with the extra cactus die chip. You can see this one's a lot different than the last one. We've got a much smaller little die chip in here. You can still see the 3 engraver's initials, but if this thing were clean, we'd have a nice clean arc all the way around the top. So that piece of metal's not supposed to be there. So another 3 points. So I just got into roll 37, and we had another almost surprise. When we got that out of the wrap, we had another really nice silvery edge, which usually we get excited about, but if you just look, the reading is really tight, really, really small compared to the quarter. So that's almost got to be a foreign, and I actually already did this just to double check. If it were Canadian, it would be magnetic. So we know it's not Canadian. We're pretty sure it's not silver. Let's see what we got. It is a 25-cent piece from the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, 2000. I know we've got foreigns on the list. I think they're only worth a point. Maybe it was 2. I can't recall, but we'll tally it up at the end. So we're on that very same roll and that we found the last foreign in, and we've got our next die chip, and this is one that I haven't found in quite a while. This is that die chip on the on George Washington's head on the back of the 2021 Philly on the reverse. Now, this one's a pretty big die chip. It's been several months since I've looked this one up. Last time I did, this was going for between maybe like $6 and $10. On a good day, on a bad day, only maybe a dollar or 2. But if you're fortunate enough to find the one where the die chip goes from the corner of the back of the hat all the way to the corner of the top of the hat, that's called, excuse me, that's called the full crown error. And that, when it first came out, was going for like $100 or something like that, maybe $150. A few months ago, it was still going for upwards of like $30 or $40 if you had the full crown. I'll look up the current values for this one and put it on the screen. And if the full crown is still a good price, I'll throw that up as well. But another cool die chip for the hunt. So we're up here on roll 38. I'm about halfway through the roll, and the quarter I want to show you I've already got under the scope. And we found one similar to this earlier. It's the 2023 Philadelphia Bessie Coleman, and I'd mentioned that NQ's error because I found an interesting one that I'd never found before. This is one that's very similar to one that I have seen before, and hopefully you can see it right here. I'd mentioned it earlier. Usually that NQ's, I do find that NQ's error I find far off here to the left. You can see we see the extra C here, and an extra E here. And that's very different than the last one we found because the E and the C were almost tripled kind of here in this space. But here we clearly have an extra E and a C off to the left, which is pretty cool. We're on roll 43, and we've got our next find of the hunt. This is the 2005 Kansas In God We Rust error. You can see it's actually I think they call it a grease strike, where a little bit of grease gets in the die and the T doesn't quite form right. You can still kind of see it there under this magnification. The really valuable versions of this will be missing like the T, the G, and the I, or maybe even more letters of In God We Trust. I've yet to find a really good like BU example of this coin. Typically when I find it, it's pretty beat up. I mean, you can see I've got some road rash over here. So not a real valuable coin, but for a box battle, a pretty neat little find. And under the scope, you can see that T, depending on the light, almost completely disappears. But that would qualify as the In God We Rust. It's also, I believe, only found on the Philadelphia. Well, we are on roll 49, and the finds just keep coming. So we've got another 2023 Philadelphia Bessie Coleman, and this time we've got a big die chip up here. Well, not a big one, but a die chip up here on the biplane. We found that one in previous hunts as well. Maybe not exactly like this, but very similar. And here we can see we've got a little bit of that extra metal there that's a die chip, and you can see it wanted to leave a lot more than it did. We've got a little bit of kind of lift here in the metal, but that's another die chip for the board. So we have reached the end of the box, and Stacking and Packing probably is wishing at this point that I had gotten a different box of quarters to do a box battle with, because we had a ton of errors that we found in this hunt. Now, we didn't find any silver, we didn't find any W's, but those are the main things we really want to find when we hunt quarters. But we had a lot of cool stuff in this hunt. So let's go down from the beginning, and I'll put a couple of these under the scope because I know I didn't bring you in for every find simply because we had so many, and this would have ended up being like a 40-minute video. We did have 2 foreigns on the hunt. We had a 25-cent piece from the Bahamas. And I unfortunately didn't get to do my research on this one. It's 1987. I'm going to guess it's some sort of like 100 yen or something to that effect, but it's some sort of Asian coin. Maybe it's from Thailand, maybe it's from Japan or China or something like that. But pretty cool coin nonetheless. Gypped me by 25 cents, but a cool foreign. We'll take it. And we'll cover the total points at the end. I'll put those up on the screen. We did have 2 Drooling Georges, and we don't need to put those under the scope again for you guys to see because I showed you both of them. One's a little bit better example than the other one from a die chip perspective, but the one with the better die chip is pretty beat up, so that'll end up going back in the box and go, or back in the return bin and go back to the bank. Now the Kanaka Oles produced big time. I think if I recall, we had like 15 or 20. I think we had 20. Let me just recount them. Well, I don't want to recount them all real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then they went down from there. There was like 5 here, 3 here, 2 here, 1 here, 1 here. I think there were like 20 of these, and each one of these piles represents a different die chip that we found. And I'm just going to take the top one off of each stack just to show you. And a couple of these that we had singles, we only found one of. But really quickly, let's have a quick look. They were all the same type of die chip problem. This one, we had the die chip sort of on the leg of the K. And actually, it looks like maybe either some post-mint damage or a little bit of extra metal up here in the right-hand corner. I only had one that looked like that. Let's see here. We had another one. This was also a single where we had just a little bit of a die chip right here in the upper part of the K. Moving up to our next number of finds, we had 2 of these where the die chip was mainly up here in the top of the A. And I'll just go ahead and show you both of those. Both of these were real nice and shiny Philadelphia quarters as well. There is the second one. We have a little bit more metal, but it's the same type of die chip, so I counted it as the same thing. But you can see it's a much bigger piece of metal there. So we had 2 of those. We had 3 like this where we had die chips in the right-hand leg of the K, and at some point in the A, mainly here in the top. I'll grab another one just to show you here. Take this one off the top. So very, very similar. Again, down here in the leg. And yeah, I think that's the same one. Yep, that's the same one. So there's two of the same ones of those. The next one, I think we had 5 of these. This was another one where, and maybe I could have counted this with one of the other ones, but we had, you know, a die chip down here on the leg. We had a die chip way up here in the A, but I had like 4 or 5 of these that were nearly identical. So I kept those together. And then last but not least, I think I said I had like 7 or 8 of these. And these were very, very minor, where we just had the die chip down here kind of on the right-hand leg. So anyway, 20 of those, and hopefully I did them right. And the reason I put them in unique piles was if I were to only count each of these as a unique die chip for counting purposes. So I'm going to do one score with every single find, and then one score where we just take one of each, just so we can get, here was a minimum score for the box. Moving on, we did have 2 of the die chip errors covering the initials down here, the extra cactus. One being more severe than the other one. This one's really easy to see. You can actually see that just with the naked eye. You don't even need to zoom in with anything. I showed you 2 or 3 of these during the hunt. This is the die chip here in the hair for the Wilma Mankiller. Moving on to the Bessie Coleman. We had a couple of interesting things on the Bessie Colemans. We actually had, I think, 3 kind of unique errors. I'm going to show you all 3 of these. So we had one where, let's see, which one is this one? Trying to remember. Oh, this one was the one with the die chip out here on the outer upper wing with almost a bigger die chip up here. So that's one die chip. Then we had one that, and I think I might have brought you in for all of these. I can't recall. You start doing so many clips and you forget what you've shown and what you haven't. This was very early in the hunt. Small die chip here on the bottom wing of the biplane, but it also came with this really unique, almost doubling or tripling down here in the NQs. So we've also got an NQs error on this one, and when I put a shadow on it with my finger, you can see that C is actually tripled and that E is doubled. So that's pretty cool. And then lastly, we found this one kind of late in the hunt. And this was another one of those NQs errors where we've got a doubling of the E out here and a double C. So I counted that NQs error twice. I basically said it was the same thing, and I counted it as a die chip for scoring purposes. Moving on, once I found one of these, I stopped looking at them because they're so prevalent. I probably had more in the hunt, but this was that 6th claw where you get a little die chip right there on the claw. We covered that earlier in the video. We covered the crossing the Delaware really, really well. Huge die chip on this one. And if I didn't put it earlier in the film, or earlier in the video, I will go ahead and put a value for this one up on the screen because this is probably one of the more valuable ones of the entire hunt. Of course, we had that grease, struck through grease error, or grease strike as we often call it, where we're missing that T. So this is the In God We Rust error. And we had 3, 6, 7 Philadelphia bicentennials and 3 Denvers. So I always separate those into piles. I pull the nicest looking ones of these and I do rolls of them. The rest go back to the bank. And then over here, we did find some book fillers. So I think earlier in the video, I miscalled this and said it was a state quarter. This is obviously a national park quarter book because the state book ended in 2009. And this is one of 2 quarters that I have left to fill. And I'll go ahead and maybe put a little insert of me filling my books with these 3 coins. But I did have an upgrade for the 66 and the 71D, which I've already pulled out of my books in preparation for upgrade. So let me go ahead and put the score up on the screen here. So if we were to count everything we found here, with the scoring system that we talked about, this is on a 115-point box. I don't know what Stacking and Packing works out to for his count, but I would have 115 points if I counted everything. And again, some of the things that I didn't have points for, like these NQs errors, I just counted as a die chip. Let's see here. We didn't count book fillers, so those didn't go into the equation. Now, if I just took individual things and said 1 bicentennial Philadelphia, 1 bicentennial Denver, 1 die chip Wilma Mankiller. If I counted each of these things as unique rather than 20 of them. It was really like 6. We come up with a 50-point box. And again, I'll put both totals here on the screen so you can see that and understand how I scored it. So anyway, thank you to Stacking and Packing for making the challenge. Sorry this took me so very long to get to, but as you guys know, if you follow my community, I lost my voice last week, and I'm still struggling a little bit, but it's mostly back. So I've got this hunt we're going to get posted. I've got a $50 hunt that I'm going to get posted, and I've actually already picked up another box of quarters that I'm going to go through later this week. And this is bank wrapped, but it's like 32 rolls of bank wrapped, and I think 27 of the bank wrapped rolls, the other 20, what did I say, like 17 rolls are all brand new Kanaka Oles. So that could be an interesting hunt. We'll see. So stay tuned for that video. If you like this one, let me know by dropping down below and clicking on that like button. Leave me a comment while you're down there. If you're new to the channel and you like coin roll hunts, I do a whole lot of them. Make sure you do click on that subscribe button and then click that little bell and select all so you get notified each and every time I release a new video. I really appreciate the comments, really appreciate the likes, and especially like the new subscribers. If you're new here and you click that subscribe button, let me know you are new. And with that, I guess last thing I'll say is a big shout out to my channel supporters. Thank you again for the support you guys give each and every month. Really appreciate it. If you want to learn more about that, look in the description below. There is a link to all of my member tiers. So if that's interesting for you, make sure you check that out. Other than that, you guys take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.